Alright, let's talk about one of the greatest mysteries in Warhammer 40k, the Lost Forge Worlds. Imagine entire planets, once thriving with the hum of sacred machinery, their skies darkened by the smoke of endless manufactoria, suddenly vanishing. These were the lifeblood of the Imperium's war machine, producing everything from bolt guns to the mighty Titans. Yet, some of them have been lost, swallowed by the warp, annihilated in war, or simply forgotten. For fans of 40k, this is more than just a historical footnote. It's the allure of the unknown, the possibility that somewhere out there, buried beneath the ruins of a forsaken world, lie blueprints to technologies beyond our comprehension, technologies that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. What if an STC, standard template construct of a long-extinct weapon, still exists on one of these worlds? What if a forge world, lost for millennia, still clings to life in the void, its inhabitants warped by time and radiation? The search for these lost worlds is more than just a quest for knowledge. It's a race against time, chaos, and the horrors of the galaxy. Because if the Imperium doesn't find them first, someone else will. If you want to understand why the Lost Forge Worlds are such a big deal, you first need to know what a Forge World actually is. Because these aren't just planets with some factories on them. No, they are something far more significant. A Forge World is a living, breathing engine of war, a place where the very air is thick with the scent of burning metal and sacred machine oil. These are the domains of the Adeptus Mechanicus, where billions toil endlessly to produce the weapons, armor, and technology that keep the Imperium alive. And when I say endlessly, I mean it. Life on a Forge World is nothing like what you'd find on a Hive World or an Agri World. There are no open fields, no natural landscapes, just endless manufactoria, stretching as far as the eye can see, belching smoke into the toxic sky. The ground itself is metal, the rivers run black with industrial waste, and the sun, if you can even see it through the smog, is just another thing to be ignored in the relentless march of production. To be born on a Forge World means being assigned a role from the moment you take your first breath, and that role will likely never change. Whether it's assembling lasgun components, maintaining the power conduits for a Titan foundry, or simply ensuring the flow of sacred unguents for the machine god's great engines, you do what you were born to do. And if you can't, well, let's just say that servitors don't come from nowhere. What makes Forge Worlds so special isn't just their industry, it's their knowledge. The Adeptus Mechanicus aren't just factory overseers. They are the keepers of the Imperium's technological secrets. In a galaxy where so much knowledge has been lost to time, war, and outright superstition, the Mechanicus jealously guard what little remains. Every Forge World has its own unique pattern of technology, different ways of building tanks, ships, even bolt guns. Some worlds specialize in plasma weaponry, others in massive starships, and some, like Mars, hold the secrets of the god machines, the Titans. But here's the thing. The Adeptus Mechanicus doesn't truly understand all of its own technology. To them, science and religion are the same, and every machine is a sacred relic. They don't invent new things. They recover, replicate, and worship. They follow rituals when activating devices, whispering prayers to the machine spirit, believing that technology itself has a divine essence. And sometimes this faith seems justified. There are countless stories of weapons refusing to fire for those who show disrespect, of ancient engines coming to life only when the right rites are performed. Is it superstition, or is there something real behind the machine cult's beliefs? Now, imagine that kind of technological mysticism, but on a scale that spans entire planets. That's a Forge World, and that's why losing one is such a catastrophe. Every lost Forge World isn't just a strategic blow to the Imperium's war effort, it's a potential loss of knowledge that can never be replaced. What if a lost Forge World had a working standard template construct, one of the mythical machines from the dark age of technology that could instantly fabricate anything? What if it held blueprints for weapons more powerful than the Imperium has ever known? What if an entire civilization of tech priests, isolated for millennia, has advanced beyond anything Mars could imagine? These aren't just hypothetical questions. They're the reason why the hunt for lost Forge worlds is so important. Because every single one of them is a time capsule of a different age, a different way of thinking, a different approach to technology. And in the grim darkness of the far future, where innovation is almost non-existent, rediscovering a single lost world could change everything. Losing a Forge world isn't like misplacing a data slate or forgetting where you parked your chimera. These are entire planets, massive industrial powerhouses, the backbone of the Imperium's war machine. And yet, history is littered with cases where they have simply disappeared, some in fiery destruction, others fading into legend, their locations and secrets lost to time. But how does something so vital, so enormous, just vanish? The answer is as grim as you'd expect in the 41st millennium. War is the most obvious culprit. The Imperium is constantly at war, and Forge worlds are prime targets. Whether it's a full-scale invasion by an Orc Way-Ag, an Eldar raiding force striking at critical supply lines, or chaos cultists turning a world against itself, the result is the same: destruction on an unimaginable scale. Some Forge worlds have been completely obliterated in these conflicts, reduced to lifeless husks. Others, like Gryphon 4, were consumed by the Tyranids, their entire populations devoured, their manufactoria dismantled at the molecular level by the Great Devourer. When a Forge world falls to war, it's not just a planet that dies. It's the loss of irreplaceable knowledge, technology, and production capacity that can cripple entire sectors. But outright destruction isn't the only way a Forge world can be lost. Some don't burn in battle. They simply slip away. The warp is an unforgiving, chaotic force, and warp storms can cut off entire systems from the wider Imperium for centuries, even millennia. There are records of Forge worlds that vanished during the Horus heresy, swallowed by the tides of the Immaterium, only to reappear thousands of years later, changed in ways no one can fully explain. Some of these worlds return intact, their populations surviving through sheer faith in the machine god. Others come back as something twisted, corrupted by the horrors of the warp. And then there are those that never return at all, lost forever, drifting in some nightmare realm beyond mortal comprehension. And let's not forget the threat from within. The Adeptus Mechanicus may present itself as a monolithic institution, but beneath the surface, it's a tangled mess of rivalries, ideological conflicts, and outright heresy. Techno-heresy is a constant fear. Whether it's radical tech priests delving too deep into forbidden knowledge, artificial intelligence running out of control, or outright rebellion against Mars, some Forge worlds have sealed their own fates by stepping beyond the rigid doctrines of the cult Mechanicus. Some have declared independence, only to be crushed by the might of the Imperium. Others have been wiped out in internal purges, their knowledge buried because it was deemed too dangerous. And then there are the truly lost ones, those that turn to the Dark Mechanicum, forsaking the Omnissiah to serve the ruinous powers. These worlds still exist, but they are no longer human in any way that matters. They are hell forges now, places where flesh and metal are fused in ways that defy reason, where demonic engines are birthed in pain and madness. But is being lost always permanent? That's the real question. Some fan theories suggest that there are entire fleets dedicated to rediscovering these lost Forge worlds, secret Mechanicus expeditions scouring the galaxy for remnants of lost knowledge. Maybe there are tech priests who spend their entire lives piecing together ancient star maps, searching for the ghostly echoes of a missing world. And if a lost Forge world is found, what then? Does the Imperium welcome it back with open arms, or does Mars send the might of the Titan legions to purge any deviation that may have taken root in its long isolation? The Imperium rarely forgives, and it never forgets. If a Forge world has been lost for too long, if its tech priests have deviated too much from the sacred orthodoxy of Mars, it might not be salvation that finds them. It might be extermination. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, even knowledge can be a crime. If there's one lost Forge world that captures the imagination of Warhammer 40K fans more than any other, it's Trebor. This isn't just another ruined manufactorum buried under the weight of Imperial bureaucracy. This was, by all accounts, one of the most technologically advanced Forge worlds ever created. A world where knowledge from the dark age of technology wasn't just preserved, but actively used, where innovation wasn't heresy, but a way of life. And then, somehow, it was lost. The story of Trebor is almost too incredible to be real. Unlike most Forge worlds, which owe their origins to colonists from Mars, Trebor was something unique, a fusion of two civilizations. During the dark age of technology, when humanity still commanded unimaginable scientific mastery, an expedition from Terra and another from Mars were both lost in a warp storm. Against all odds, they found themselves stranded on the same world, a planet rich in resources but completely cut off from the rest of humanity. These survivors, instead of falling into conflict, did something unthinkable by modern Mechanicus standards. They combined their knowledge. The result was a Forge world unlike any other, one that didn't just follow the traditions of Mars, but built upon them, pushing the limits of what was possible. The technology of Trebor became legendary. They produced their own version of the Vanquisher cannon, considered by many to be the most powerful iteration of that weapon. Some theories suggest that their advancements in energy-based weaponry and vehicle optimization surpassed even the famed plasma tech of Ryza. But perhaps the most tantalizing rumor is that Trebor had access to an intact standard template construct, one of those mythical machines capable of designing and building anything humanity could ever need. If true, that alone would make Trebor the single most important rediscovery in the entire Imperium's history. But then Trebor vanished. Not in a dramatic war, not in some apocalyptic warp incursion, just gone, buried in the sands of time. No records, no distress signals, nothing. It wasn't until the late 41st millennium, during the Second War for Armageddon, that Trebor was rediscovered by none other than Commissar Yarrick. How exactly he found it remains a mystery, but one thing is certain. When the Imperium realized what they had stumbled upon, Trebor's fate was sealed. Trebor didn't swear allegiance to Mars. It didn't even swear allegiance to the Imperium as a whole. Instead, it chose loyalty to two things, Yarrick and Kadia. This was unheard of. A Forge world that didn't immediately bow to the Fabricator General of Mars was, by all rights, a heretical entity. And yet the Imperium didn't dare move against it. Why? Because Trebor's technology was too valuable, its industry too efficient, and in the chaos of war, pragmatism overruled dogma, at least for a time. The question that still haunts fans is what happened after that. Trebor played a key role in supplying the forces of Kadia during the brutal 13th Black Crusade, but after the fall of Kadia, its fate becomes uncertain. Some say it was finally brought to heel by the Adeptus Mechanicus, forced to conform to the rigid doctrines of Mars. Others believe it was destroyed, its secrets too dangerous to be allowed to exist outside the control of the Fabricator General. But there's another theory, one that's far more intriguing. What if Trebor is still out there, hidden? What if its tech priests, unwilling to submit, simply vanished again, taking their knowledge with them? The idea that somewhere in the void, a fully operational Forge world exists, untethered to Mars, continuing to develop lost technologies in secret. That is the kind of thing that keeps 40K fans awake at night. Because in a galaxy where knowledge is locked behind dogma and fear, the thought of an independent, scientifically advanced Forge world is almost heretical in itself. But if Trebor really is out there, hidden in the depths of space, who will find it first? If there's one place in the Imperium that might hold the key to finding the lost Forge worlds, it's Mars. Not just because it's the first Forge world, but because it is the Forge world. The beating heart of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the birthplace of the cult Mechanicus, and the seat of the Fabricator General himself. Every other Forge world is just a reflection of what Mars started. And if any records of these lost planets still exist, they're locked away deep within the data vaults of the Red Planet, buried under layers of secrecy, ritual, and time. Mars wasn't always the cold, industrial hellscape it is today. Back during the dark age of technology, it was a beacon of human ingenuity, a place where science and progress thrived. But after the age of strife turned the galaxy into a nightmare of isolation and war, Mars changed. It became something else, something more religious, more dogmatic, more obsessed with preserving knowledge rather than expanding it. By the time the Emperor came to unite Terra and Mars, the Mechanicum had already solidified itself as a separate, powerful force, one that operated under its own laws. And when the Imperium was officially formed, the Treaty of Mars ensured that the Adeptus Mechanicus would maintain its autonomy. That's why Forge worlds are so independent, why they bow to Mars but not to the wider Imperium. This is where things get interesting. Mars doesn't just oversee the other Forge worlds, it controls what knowledge is shared and what is hidden. If a Forge world is lost, you'd think the Mechanicus would do everything in its power to recover it, right? Well, not necessarily. Some planets are simply allowed to be lost. The Adeptus Mechanicus is notorious for its secrecy, and there are countless theories that suggest Mars has intentionally erased certain worlds from history. Maybe these worlds harbored radical tech priests who strayed too far from the faith. Maybe they uncovered knowledge that was deemed too dangerous for the Imperium. Or maybe they were lost because of something even worse, something Mars doesn't want anyone to know about. The idea that Mars could be hiding the existence of lost Forge worlds isn't as crazy as it sounds. The Adeptus Mechanicus has always been obsessed with hoarding knowledge, even from itself. The great data crypts of Mars are filled with ancient records, some so heavily redacted that even the highest-ranking Magi have no idea what's truly written in them. And then there are the rumors of the Noctis Labyrinthus, a vast subterranean complex on Mars where the darkest secrets of the Mechanicus are kept. Some say it holds forbidden technology from the Dark Age. Others believe it hides evidence of past civilizations, things that would shake the very foundation of the Imperium if they were ever revealed. If Mars is capable of burying that asterisk kind of knowledge, what's stopping it from erasing entire planets from the records? And here's another thought. What if Mars has found some of these lost Forge worlds, but never told anyone? What if deep within the archives of the Fabricator General, there are coordinates to entire civilizations that were rediscovered and then quietly absorbed? If a lost Forge world was deemed useful, Mars wouldn't just announce its return. It would assimilate it in secret, strip it of anything valuable, and ensure that whatever knowledge it contained was safely locked away where no one could misuse it. Of course, not every lost Forge world is the result of Mars's interference. Some were genuinely swallowed by the warp, overrun by Xenos, or destroyed in war. But the idea that Mars holds the key to their rediscovery, that's something a lot of fans believe. There are even whispers that certain rogue Magi have spent centuries trying to access forbidden data, hoping to uncover the truth about these missing worlds. Because if even one asterisk of them still exists, if even one of them holds the secrets of the past, it could change everything. But here's the real question. Would Mars ever allow such knowledge to come to light? Or would it rather let these worlds remain lost forever, their secrets buried under layers of red tape, binary prayers, and the ever-present fear of tech heresy? In the grim darkness of the far future, sometimes forgetting is the most powerful weapon of all. The dark age of technology is the single greatest paradox of Warhammer 40K. It was humanity's golden age, a time when science wasn't shackled by dogma, when artificial intelligence wasn't heresy, and when mankind stood at the absolute pinnacle of its technological prowess. And yet, despite all that knowledge, all that progress, nearly everything from that era has been lost. What we have now is just a broken, superstitious shadow of what once was. But here's the thing. If that knowledge was lost, then where did it go? The Imperium would have you believe that the Dark Age of technology was erased by war, that it was simply a victim of time and destruction. But the galaxy is vast, and secrets don't just vanish. They get buried, hidden away, waiting for the right or wrong person to find them. And if there's anywhere those secrets might still exist, it's the Lost Forge worlds. Think about it. During the Dark Age, Forge worlds weren't just factory planets. They were technological powerhouses, each one a hub of research and development. These weren't places that just followed blueprints. They created them. Innovation was constant. It's almost impossible to imagine in the current age, where even the idea of creating new technology is met with suspicion or outright extermination. The Mechanicum doesn't invent, it preserves. But during the Dark Age, Forge worlds built the future. And then, when the Age of Strife came, when warp storms cut humanity off from itself and the Imperium hadn't yet been born, these worlds didn't just stop existing. Some of them endured. Some of them fought to keep their knowledge alive, and some vanished, taking their secrets with them. That's why the idea of rediscovering one of these lost worlds is so tantalizing. Because what if, hidden out there in the void, there is still a Forge world untouched by the Imperium? One that never forgot what it once was? It's not just possible. It's likely. The galaxy is littered with strange ruins, with forgotten technology that defies explanation. The Adeptus Mechanicus itself has stories of devices they can barely comprehend, machines that function without any known power source, weapons that can tear through reality itself. Are these remnants of the Dark Age? And if so, what else is still out there, waiting? There are countless theories among fans about what might be hidden on these lost worlds. Some believe that entire caches of functional standard template constructs are just waiting to be unearthed, machines capable of designing and fabricating nearly anything. Others think there are dormant AIs, ones that weren't corrupted like the infamous Men of Iron, but instead survived, waiting for someone to reactivate them. And then there's the idea that these lost Forge worlds didn't just survive the Age of Strife, they evolved. What if some of them found ways to protect themselves from the warp, to shield their knowledge, and have been watching the galaxy from the shadows ever since? But here's where it gets dangerous. If the Imperium were to rediscover such a world, what would happen? The Adeptus Mechanicus would undoubtedly descend upon it, eager to strip it of its secrets. But they wouldn't be the only ones. Chaos would seek to corrupt it. The Eldar, always meddling in the affairs of lesser species, might try to destroy it before its knowledge could be unleashed. The Necrons, who see all organic technology as beneath them, could see it as a threat. Even the Tyranids might have something to gain from consuming the intelligence locked within such a place. And if the Mechanicus did get their hands on it, would they even understand it? Or would they declare it heresy, ensuring that its knowledge was lost again? The idea that somewhere in the galaxy, there exists a Forge world where the Dark Age of technology never truly ended, that is the kind of thing that could change the fate of the Imperium forever. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, knowledge isn't just power, it's the most dangerous weapon of all. If there's one thing worse than a lost Forge world, it's a corrupted one. Because not every missing Forge world is gone in the way we'd like to think. Some haven't been swallowed by warp storms or forgotten by history. Some are still out there, still forging weapons, still advancing their craft, but not for the Imperium. These are the Hell Forges, the dark reflection of everything the Adeptus Mechanicus was meant to be, where technology is no longer bound by logic, faith, or even sanity. The Dark Mechanicum isn't just a heretical offshoot of the Adeptus Mechanicus, it's a complete rejection of everything Mars stands for. During the Horus heresy, when half of the Imperium's forces turned against the Emperor, a significant number of tech priests did the same. They saw the limitations imposed by the cult Mechanicus as shackles, holding back true understanding. They wanted unrestricted access to knowledge, to explore the mysteries of AI, warp-powered machines, and the forbidden sciences that the Imperium had declared anathema. And Chaos, always eager to twist and corrupt, offered them exactly that. Those tech priests who sided with Horus became something new, something monstrous, and when the war was lost, they fled into the Eye of Terror and beyond, taking entire Forge worlds with them. This is why the idea of lost Forge worlds is so terrifying, because when a Forge world disappears, there's always the possibility that it didn't just die. It might have fallen. And once a world falls to the Dark Mechanicum, it doesn't just become another lost planet. It becomes something far worse. Hell Forges don't just produce war machines. They create abominations. Imagine titans fused with demonic flesh, their machine spirits replaced with caged warp entities that hunger for blood. Imagine entire legions of mechanical horrors, built with corrupted STCs that churn out weapons so twisted even the most radical magos would recoil in disgust. On these worlds, the line between machine and demon ceases to exist. The assembly lines run red with blood, the forges are lit by the tormented screams of the sacrificed, and every cog, every bolt, every weapon is infused with warp-tainted madness. And the worst part? They're not just hiding in the shadows. The Dark Mechanicum isn't some forgotten relic of the Horus heresy. It's still very much alive, still working, still spreading its influence across the galaxy. They supply the traitor legions, the renegade warbands, the heretics who operate in the fringes of space. Every chaos titan that marches, every demon engine that roars across the battlefield, every hellish construct that defies the laws of nature, they all come from somewhere. And that somewhere is the Hell Forges. The really chilling thought is this. What if some of the Forge worlds that have gone missing recently haven't been lost at all? What if they've been converted? Warp storms can cut off entire systems, leaving them vulnerable. Chaos infiltrators can corrupt even the most faithful, twisting their beliefs until they no longer see the difference between the Omnissiah and the Dark Gods. There could be Forge worlds that think they are still loyal, still operating as part of the Imperium, but in reality, they're already on the path to damnation. And here's the real nightmare. How would anyone even know? The Imperium is so vast, so bureaucratically sluggish, that a Forge world could go silent for centuries before anyone even notices. By the time a response is sent, by the time the Adeptus Mechanicus or the Inquisition actually investigates, what would they find? A planet that no longer belongs to humanity, but to something else entirely. Some fans believe that the Hell Forges are more than just isolated strongholds of the Dark Mechanicum. There's a theory that they are expanding, reaching out into the galaxy, actively hunting for new worlds to corrupt. If that's true, then the loss of a Forge world isn't just a setback for the Imperium. It's a victory for chaos. A victory that isn't just about gaining another factory, but about rewriting the very nature of technology itself. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, even the machines can fall. And when they do, they don't just break, they turn against you. One of the best things about Warhammer 40K is the sheer amount of mystery built into the setting. The galaxy is massive, filled with forgotten relics, hidden civilizations, and planets that have simply disappeared from history. And when it comes to lost Forge worlds, fans have no shortage of theories about where they might be hiding. Some of these ideas are grounded in lore, others are pure speculation, but all of them tap into that core question. What if something incredible is still out there, waiting to be found? One of the most popular theories is that some lost Forge worlds are hidden deep within the Segmentum Obscurus, near the Eye of Terror. This is a region of space that has been completely ravaged by warp storms for thousands of years, and entire star systems have been lost inside its swirling madness. The theory goes that not all of them were destroyed. Some could still exist, trapped within pockets of reality where time and space no longer function normally. If that's true, then these worlds might have spent millennia untouched by the outside galaxy, their inhabitants either frozen in time or changed into something unrecognizable. Then there's the idea that some Forge worlds didn't just disappear. They were deliberately hidden. The Adeptus Mechanicus is notorious for hoarding knowledge, and it's not impossible to think that certain worlds were cut off from official records on purpose. Maybe these were experimental research worlds, places where the Mechanicus was working on something so radical, so dangerous, that they decided to erase all trace of them. If these worlds are still out there, they could contain forgotten technologies beyond anything the Imperium currently possesses. Some fans even suggest that Mars itself might secretly know about these planets, but is keeping them classified, waiting for the right time to retrieve their lost knowledge. Another fascinating theory is that some Lost Forge worlds are actually outside the known galaxy. During the Dark Age of technology, humanity expanded far beyond what the Imperium currently controls. If a Forge world was established in deep space, beyond the borders of what's mapped today, it could still be operating, completely unaware of everything that's happened since. These worlds could have evolved in ways we can't even imagine. Without the dogma of the Adeptus Mechanicus holding them back, they might have continued advancing, unlocking technologies the Imperium would consider outright heresy. And if they were ever rediscovered, the conflict between them and Mars would be inevitable. But perhaps the most bizarre theory of all is that some Forge worlds might not be in real space anymore. The warp is unpredictable, and we know that entire planets have been swallowed by it, only to reappear centuries later. Some believe that there are Forge worlds drifting inside the Immaterium, surviving in the nightmare realm beyond reality. If that's true, what would they look like now? Would their inhabitants still be human? Or would they have adapted, mutated into something else? Would their machines still function, powered by something other than simple logic and science? The idea of a Forge world corrupted not by chaos, but by the nature of the warp itself is terrifying. Of course, not all theories suggest these lost worlds are beyond reach. Some fans point to known regions of space that are still unexplored, the Ghoul Stars, the Halo Zone, even the depths of Segmentum Pacificus. These places are filled with forgotten histories, ruins of civilizations that predate the Imperium. Could a lost Forge world be hiding there, still functioning, still waiting? If so, the question isn't just whether it can be found, it's who will find it first. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, discovery is never just about knowledge. It's about power. If the Imperium ever manages to reclaim one of the lost Forge worlds, the potential discoveries could be beyond imagination. We're not just talking about stockpiles of tanks, titans, or standard munitions. No, this is about something much bigger. This is about knowledge, the one thing the Imperium fears almost as much as it covets. Because somewhere, buried beneath the ruins of these forgotten worlds, there could be relics from the Dark Age of technology that defy everything the Mechanicus believes. Think about what was lost. Before the Imperium, before the Age of Strife, humanity didn't just survive in the galaxy, it thrived. Fully functional standard template constructs were in use, machines that could build nearly anything with perfect efficiency. The Imperium has spent 10,000 years desperately clinging to whatever scraps of STC data it can find, treating even partial blueprints like Holy Scripture. But what if an intact STC still exists, hidden on a lost Forge world? The rediscovery of just one could change everything. A single undamaged STC could provide blueprints for war machines the Imperium has never seen before, entire new classes of starships, or even, though this is practically heresy to suggest, advanced medical technology that could eliminate disease, extend lifespans, and repair genetic degradation. Then there's artificial intelligence. The Mechanicus will tell you that all AI is a threat, a remnant of the Men of Iron that nearly wiped out humanity. And sure, some of those rogue machines were a nightmare, but not all AI was hostile. There are rumors whispered in dark corners of the Mechanicus that some lost Forge worlds had advanced, loyal AI, ones that worked alongside humanity instead of trying to destroy it. If one of these still exists, if an entire world's worth of thinking machines has spent millennia refining its knowledge in isolation, what happens if they're found? Would the Imperium even recognize them as an asset? Or would they purge them out of blind fear? And it's not just AI or STCs. What about lost energy technology? Some believe that the dark age of technology saw the creation of power sources so efficient they could run entire planetary defense grids indefinitely. The Imperium's reactors are ancient, unstable things, prone to catastrophic failure and entropy. But a lost Forge world might still have blueprints for perfect fusion cores, warp drives that don't require human sacrifice to function, or shielding technology that could withstand even tyrannid bioweaponry. Some fans speculate that even entire new forms of weaponry could be hidden out there. The Mechanicus has a tendency to hoard and restrict anything they don't fully understand, which means there could be lost worlds filled with advanced plasma weaponry, gravitic artillery, or even something worse, something completely unknown to the Imperium's current arsenal. Imagine a tank that never runs out of ammunition, a battleship that can phase through reality, or a weapon that doesn't just destroy its target, but erases it from existence entirely. If any of these things ever existed, they are still out there somewhere. But here's the real question. If the Imperium finds a lost Forge world and discovers all of this, what happens next? Does the Mechanicus integrate this knowledge, or do they destroy it out of fear? The Mechanicus isn't known for its willingness to accept new ideas. In fact, it violently suppresses them. So even if an expedition uncovered the greatest technological find in human history, there's a very real chance that Mars would declare it too dangerous and order it buried once again. That's the irony of the Imperium. What could save it might also be what it fears the most. And that's what makes Lost Forge worlds so fascinating. They represent the greatest mystery of Warhammer 40K, the one thing that could genuinely shift the balance of power. Because if even one of these worlds is found intact, with its knowledge and technology still preserved, it wouldn't just be a victory for the Imperium. It would be the start of something new, or, depending on who finds it first, the beginning of the end. The idea that lost Forge worlds could one day be found isn't just wishful thinking. It's practically inevitable. The galaxy is simply too big, too ancient, too filled with secrets for these places to stay hidden forever. The Imperium is always expanding, always sending out exploratory fleets, always stumbling across remnants of its past. And with the opening of the Great Rift, entire regions of space have been reshaped, exposing systems that have been cut off for millennia. Somewhere out there, behind the veil of warp storms and forgotten history, there are Forge worlds waiting to be rediscovered. But the real question isn't if they'll be found, it's what happens when they are. For the Imperium, the return of a lost Forge world could be either its greatest blessing or its greatest threat. If the world is still loyal, if it still clings to the faith of the machine god, then its recovery could be a massive boost to the war effort. Imagine an entire industrial world, untouched by the decay of time, suddenly producing war machines at full capacity. Entire fleets could be armed, new patterns of tanks and weapons could be reintroduced, and Mars could regain some of the knowledge it lost long ago. In a time when the Imperium is being torn apart on all sides, a single recovered Forge world could tip the balance in entire war zones. But what if the world isn't loyal? What if it has changed, evolved, or worse, fallen? A Forge world left to its own devices for thousands of years could have gone in any direction. It could have abandoned the dogma of Mars, developing new technologies in ways that the Adeptus Mechanicus would consider heretical. It could have formed its own independent empire, refusing to bow to Terra or the Fabricator General. And of course, there's always the worst-case scenario, that the world has been corrupted. Chaos has a way of seeping into places that have been forgotten. A lost Forge world could have been twisted into something unrecognizable, its once great manufactoria now churning out nightmare war machines for the Dark Mechanicum. If such a world were found, it wouldn't be a cause for celebration. It would be a battlefield, a brutal war to ensure that its tainted technology never spreads beyond its borders. And then, there's the other major wild card. Who finds it first? Because let's be honest, The Imperium isn't the only faction searching for lost technology. The forces of chaos would love nothing more than to get their hands on an untouched Forge world, bending its production to the will of the Dark Gods. The Necrons, with their ancient and godlike intelligence, might see a rediscovered Forge world as nothing more than another nuisance to be eradicated. The Eldar, always meddling, could decide that such a discovery would throw the balance of fate out of alignment and attempt to destroy it before the Imperium can claim it. And then there are the Xenos empires like the Tau. Who's to say they wouldn't try to integrate an abandoned Forge world into their own growing sphere of influence? Some fans even speculate that there could be Forge worlds out there that have developed in complete isolation, forming their own strange civilizations, neither loyal to the Imperium nor corrupted by chaos. Imagine a Forge world that has never stopped innovating, that has spent thousands of years refining its technology without the restrictions of the cult Mechanicus. Would such a world see the Imperium as a long-lost ally, or as an outdated relic, unworthy of its knowledge? Would it willingly share its secrets, or would it fight to stay hidden, knowing that the Imperium would rather destroy it than let it operate outside of its control? The rediscovery of a lost Forge world isn't just about finding a planet. It's about confronting the Imperium's past, and more importantly, its future. Because if one of these worlds still exists, still holds the knowledge that the Imperium lost long ago, then it forces a question that few in the Adeptus Mechanicus want to answer. Should the Imperium move forward, or is it doomed to stay trapped in its own fear of progress? In the grim darkness of the far future, nothing stays lost forever. The only question is whether the Imperium is ready for what it might find. The Lost Forge worlds are one of the greatest mysteries in Warhammer 40k. These are not just missing planets. They are potential treasure troves of forgotten knowledge, time capsules from eras when humanity was at the peak of its technological mastery. Some were lost to war, others to the warp, and some simply faded into legend, their locations erased from history. But we know they're still out there. The Imperium is a crumbling empire, desperately holding on to its past while struggling to survive in the present. And somewhere in the void, hidden in the ruins of these lost worlds, could be the very secrets that might save it, or doom it completely. The Adeptus Mechanicus would have us believe that technology is something sacred, something that must be preserved and worshipped rather than understood. But what if they're wrong? What if these lost worlds hold not just weapons, but knowledge that could challenge the very foundations of the Imperium? What if they contain STCs that could render entire Forge worlds obsolete? What if there are still civilizations out there, human or otherwise, that have evolved beyond the rigid doctrines of Mars, pushing science and engineering to levels the Imperium can't even comprehend? The thought is both thrilling and terrifying, because in the Warhammer universe, progress is almost always met with suspicion, and often with outright extermination. And yet, the search continues. Rogue traders, inquisitors, radical magi of the Mechanicus, even chaos warbands, all of them hunt for these lost worlds, each with their own agenda. Some seek to reclaim them for the Imperium, others to exploit their secrets, and some simply want to see what's been hidden for so long. Because what if one of these planets still exists, untouched, waiting for someone to finally find it? Imagine the implications. The Imperium, as stagnant as it is, could be forced to adapt, to evolve, or to destroy what it doesn't understand, as it always has. But the scariest thing? The Lost Forge worlds might not want to be found. If a world has been isolated for thousands of years, free from the dogma of Mars, free from the endless wars of the Imperium, would it even recognize its long-lost brethren as allies? Or would it see them as invaders? And if it has survived this long, what defenses might it have? What weapons might it have perfected in its seclusion? The Imperium always assumes that anything lost should want to return. But what if some things are better left undiscovered? This is why the Lost Forge worlds are such an incredible part of Warhammer 40k. They represent the unknown in a galaxy where so much has already been set in stone. They are a reminder that not everything is accounted for, that there are still secrets buried beneath the ruins of the past, waiting to be uncovered. And if even one of these worlds is found intact, it could shake the very foundations of the Imperium, for better or worse. So what do you think? Are there still Forge worlds out there, hidden in the depths of space, waiting to be rediscovered? And if they are found, will they be the salvation of the Imperium, or its undoing? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of 40K's biggest mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, the only thing more powerful than a lost world is the knowledge it holds.